Ladies and gentlemen, there are those among us who move through the world as if lit from within by an unseen fire. Their presence is unsettling, not for what they say or do, but for what they awaken in others. They are not too much, nor too intense. They are simply sovereign beings whose inner light casts long shadows, stirring hidden truths in those unready to face them. Today, we do not speak of arrogance or superiority. We speak of the rare soul whose aura is powerful, too powerful, in fact, for most people to confront without first confronting themselves. You do not wear masks to gain approval from others. Every word you speak, every choice you make, emerges from a place of deep internal alignment rather than external expectation. You have long outgrown the need to play roles that make others comfortable. In a world saturated with personas, curated identities, and performative interactions, your refusal to conform is both revolutionary and, to many, deeply unsettling. You understand that authenticity is not a brand or aesthetic. It is a devotion to truth, even when that truth alienates you. You do not adjust your tone to please the room. You do not compromise your values for acceptance. There is a quiet strength in you, forged not by defiance but by inner clarity. This authenticity does not scream, it resonates. It does not seek to impress, it seeks only to be real, and in that it becomes a mirror, often a painful one, for those who have never dared to meet themselves unfiltered. You are not here to be liked by everyone, you are here to be whole, and that wholeness radiates as power. But power misunderstood becomes threat. People feel something in your presence, often before they can name it. They feel their own compromises, their own forgotten truths rising unbidden, just by being near you. Some will interpret this discomfort as your arrogance, your intensity, your aloofness, but you know it is none of those things. It is simply that you are not willing to perform. You have walked the long road of self-discovery, and you know the price of self. Betrayal is too high to pay, even for peace. Your authenticity does not make you superior. It makes you rare, and in its rarity, it unsettles the norms that so many depend on. People may try to mold you, dilute you, or advise you to be softer, less direct, more agreeable, not because they care for your well-being, but because your truth feels like confrontation. But you are not here to conform to comfort. You are here to express something real, something alive, something uncontainable. The world needs your presence exactly as it is, unedited and whole, because only in the presence of the unapologetically authentic does something deep inside others stir awake, and whether they embrace it or flee from it, they will never forget the feeling of having been in the presence of someone who dared to live without a mask and who refused to apologize for being entirely, defiantly, and completely without effort or intention to intrude. You simply see people, not just the surface they present to the world, but the layers they try so carefully to hide. You catch the tremble behind a smile, the hesitation in a voice, the subtle dissonance between someone's words and the truth they dare not speak. It is not about judgment or critique. It is an innate perception, a depth of awareness that cuts through the noise. You don't search for deception. It reveals itself naturally when people stand in your presence. There is no manipulation in your gaze, but there is clarity, and clarity is often mistaken for intrusion. Others can sense this when they are around you, the sense of being known, perhaps more deeply than they know themselves. It makes them feel seen in a way that is raw, unguarded, even uncomfortable, especially if they are still performing the role they believe they must play in order to be loved, respected, or accepted. You do not look at people with the need to define or fix them. Rather, you intuitively grasp their contradictions, their wounds, their longings, and their potential, all in one unspoken moment. It's not always welcomed. In fact, this ability can lead to suspicion or even resentment, as though your mere perception is a violation. You see through the stories people tell themselves to survive, and even when you remain silent, your awareness is felt. There is a weight to your silence, a knowing that can feel confrontational without you saying a word. People may accuse you of making them uncomfortable, not because of anything you've done, but because of what they cannot hide when they are with you. You do not expose them. You simply illuminate what was already there. You may even find yourself shrinking your presence or softening your insight to make others feel safe. But it never quite works, because your presence was never designed to make people comfortable. It was designed to reveal. You carry a kind of internal light that shines regardless of intent, and in that light, illusions falter. Those who are not ready to see themselves will retreat, make assumptions about you, or label your clarity as coldness. But those who are ready for truth, even if it shakes them, will stay, because in your presence they find a strange kind of liberation, the kind that comes only when someone sees them, not as they pretend to be, but as they truly are, beneath the masks, the layers, the noise, the fear, the doubt. The facade they thought they needed to survive. You have a way of drawing conversations into deeper waters, often without realizing you're doing it. Where others are content to skim the surface, discussing weather, gossip, headlines, or rehearsed opinions, you instinctively steer toward the undercurrents of meaning. You are not interested in the noise that fills time. You are compelled by what lies beneath, the stories that haven't been told, the questions that keep people awake at night, the quiet truths trembling behind guarded eyes. When you speak, you tend to bypass the superficial, not out of dismissal, but because your soul is not nourished by hollow words. You ask the questions most avoid, not to provoke discomfort, but because you're drawn to connection that is rooted in authenticity. You want to understand what someone fears, what they long for, what they have lost, what they're too afraid to name, and what they dream about in silence. These conversations are not always welcome, even when people think they crave them. There is a part of every human being that longs to be known, but there is also a part that fears being seen. Your energy brings both to the surface. People find themselves saying things to you they've never said aloud, revealing memories, doubts, confessions, regrets, and hopes that have lived inside them unspoken for years. They don't understand why they're opening up, only that they feel some force within your presence that grants them temporary permission to be real. This can be healing for some, but unsettling for others, especially when they realize they cannot go back to pretending as easily as they once did. After encountering you, the mask feels heavier, the small talk more hollow, the performance more exhausting. Some people will come to you again and again, chasing that depth like a lifeline, while others will distance themselves, uncertain of why they feel so exposed. It's not something you control. You are not trying to be intense or invasive. Your presence simply carries a frequency that resonates beyond the surface. You are not here for rehearsed versions of truth. You are here for the soul of it. And though many claim to seek depth, few are ready for the vulnerability it demands. But when they are, they return to you, not because you have answers, but because you hold space for the questions that truly matter, the ones that change a person not by resolving them, but by having the courage to speak them aloud in the presence of someone who won't look away or flinch. Redirect the conversation to something safer, lighter, or more convenient for everyone else in the room. You walk into a room and something shifts, not because you demand attention, but because your energy carries a weight that cannot be ignored. People notice, even if they don't understand what they're feeling. It's not that you speak louder or take up more space. Your power lies in your stillness, your certainty, your presence. You carry yourself with an inner knowing that doesn't seek approval, and in a world that thrives on external validation, that is deeply unsettling. Without saying a word, you become a mirror, and in that mirror, people see what they are not ready to confront in themselves. Your confidence becomes a silent reminder of their insecurity. Your calm becomes a contrast to their inner chaos. Yourself, Trust highlights the areas where they still rely on others to define their worth. This triggering effect is not intentional. It is simply the natural outcome of a strong, integrated aura colliding with one that is fragmented or uncertain. You don't need to prove yourself because you are anchored in who you are, and that anchoring exposes the drift in others. People may feel inferior around you without understanding why, and instead of acknowledging their own discomfort, they project it outward. They might interpret your quiet as arrogance, your insight as judgment, your boundaries as rejection, but it is none of those things. You are not responsible for their emotional reactions, yet you are often blamed for them, simply because you stirred something they were trying to keep hidden. You don't shrink yourself to make others comfortable, and that refusal is often seen as a threat. Not because you are aggressive, but because you are unshakably yourself. You are not playing the unspoken social game of false modesty, flattery, or pretending not to know your own power. And when you show up fully, unapologetically whole, people feel everything within them that is not whole, and that sensation can be both magnetic and overwhelming. Some will be drawn to your clarity, wanting to be near the stability they sense in you. Others will avoid you or even try to discredit you, hoping to diminish the discomfort you unintentionally evoke. You walk as someone who has earned their peace, and that peace becomes a contrast to the inner battles others have yet to face, creating a tension that few can name but many instinctively react to with avoidance, resistance, or a subtle sense of fear they can't quite explain or admit. Solitude to you is not an escape, it is a return. While others avoid silence or fill their lives with constant noise, you find something sacred in stillness. You are not afraid to be alone because you know who you are when no one is watching. In fact, you are most yourself when the distractions of the world fall away, when you are not performing, not reacting, not accommodating, but simply existing in the fullness of your own energy. You have built a relationship with yourself that many never take the time to develop. You have learned to sit with your thoughts, to face your fears without flinching, to ask yourself difficult questions and wait patiently for honest answers. You do not dread solitude because you have already met the parts of yourself that others spend their entire lives running from. You do not rely on constant companionship to feel worthy, validated, or whole, and that self-sufficiency unsettles those who equate solitude with loneliness. People are conditioned to believe that to be alone is to be unloved, but you have discovered the opposite, that solitude is often the birthplace of the deepest kind of love, the kind that is rooted in truth rather than need, in presence rather than performance. When you are alone, you are not empty, you are full of reflection, insight, creativity, and connection to something greater than yourself. You are comfortable with your own company because you've made peace with your own shadow. And in doing so, you radiate a quiet strength that makes others question the foundations of their own sense of self. Your solitude is not a wall, it is a sanctuary, and while others may interpret it as distance or emotional unavailability, it is in fact the clearest sign that you do not fear yourself. You do not need others to complete you, and in a world where so many relationships are built on mutual avoidance of self, this makes you feel foreign. Even dangerous people may try to pull you from your solitude, to make you more social, more dependent, more like them, not because they know what's best for you, but because your contentment in being alone challenges the unspoken belief that external validation is the only real measure of worth. When someone thrives in solitude, it forces others to confront how much of their own identity depends on being seen, heard, approved of, and constantly surrounded. Your ability to be alone without being lonely reveals the quiet desperation that lives beneath the surface of many people's lives. And instead of asking themselves why they feel so uncomfortable in silence, they may project that discomfort onto you, labeling you as withdrawn, distant, cold, or overly independent, but what they are really responding to is the reflection of a kind of freedom they have not yet found within themselves. You are not trying to isolate yourself. You are simply protecting the clarity that only solitude can give. In solitude, you are able to hear the voice beneath the noise, the voice that guides, heals, and reorients you toward your true path. You do not chase constant connection, because you understand that not all presence is nourishing, not all company is sacred, and not all attention is aligned with your deeper purpose. Your time alone refines your intuition, strengthens your integrity, and deepens your ability to connect authentically with others when the moment is right. You are not afraid of missing out, because you know that anything meant for you will find you even in stillness. And so you return again and again to your solitude, not to hide, not to escape, but to remember, to realign, and to emerge with a presence that is quiet yet unmistakable, gentle yet unshakable, invisible to those who cannot see clearly, but unforgettable to those who can feel truth when it walks silently into the room without needing to speak or explain or prove itself to anyone at all. You do not follow the script that society writes for most people. From a young age, you likely sensed that the rules others lived by didn't quite fit the shape of your soul. You saw through the rituals of conformity, the need to dress a certain way, think a certain way, believe in things simply because others said you should. And somewhere deep inside you, a quiet refusal began to form. Not a loud rebellion, not a need to fight or shock, but something far more unsettling to the collective comfort, the refusal to pretend. You walk differently through the world, not because you are trying to stand out, but because you simply cannot dim yourself to blend in. You don't adopt trends for the sake of inclusion, and you don't speak in a voice that isn't yours just to gain approval. Your values, your instincts, your way of seeing things often place you at odds with groupthink, and you have learned that being honest about what you feel, know, or sense can be dangerous in spaces where most people are just trying to agree their way into belonging. You are not difficult. You are not defiant. You are simply awake, and being awake in a world that numbs itself with distraction, denial, and repetition is often treated as a threat. You ask questions others don't dare to ask. You notice patterns others are afraid to acknowledge. You see systems, social, cultural, emotional, that no longer serve truth, and you cannot unsee them once you do. Your energy alone disrupts these systems because it does not fall into place. People feel your difference even if they don't know how to name it. You make them question why they believe what they believe, and for many, that question is too uncomfortable to hold for long, so they push it away. They might mock you, challenge you, dismiss you, or try to change you, not because they understand you, but because they don't. And what people don't understand, they often try to neutralize. You're not trying to break anything. You're simply not willing to betray yourself in order to be accepted into a structure that asks you to trade your essence for approval. You don't walk through life seeking to be difficult, but you will not lie to make others feel safe in their illusions. You are not wired to follow blindly. You observe, you listen, you discern, and then you choose based on something within you that cannot be explained by logic alone. This is your compass, and it has kept you true even when the world has pulled you in every direction. You live by an inner law, one not written in books or spoken in classrooms, but carved into the walls of your spirit through experience, reflection, and intuition, and because of this, you naturally disrupt the flow of environments that depend on unspoken compliance. You challenge social scripts simply by not participating in them. Your presence is a kind of silent revolution, one that cannot be coerced, manipulated, or easily categorized. This unsettles people. It confuses them. They may not know why they feel reactive around you, only that something about you makes them question the roles they've been playing. They may sense that your freedom comes from not needing the same things they do, approval, recognition, permission, and that realization stirs something uncomfortable in them. They either feel drawn to you in search of their own awakening, or they feel the need to distance themselves, to protect the reality they've worked so hard to build on the shaky foundation of borrowed beliefs and unexamined norms. You don't disrupt for the sake of disruption, and you don't criticize from a place of superiority. You simply see too clearly to participate in what is false, and because you see it, you cannot unsee it, and because you cannot unsee it, you cannot unknow it, and because you cannot unknow it, you cannot unknowingly be part of it. No matter how many smiles, rewards, or invitations are offered in exchange for your silence or your surrender to something that never truly felt like home to you in the first place, there is something about your presence that doesn't just walk into a room. It enters it with the quiet force of a wave that shifts the entire emotional atmosphere without raising its voice. People feel you before they hear you. It's not about drama or volume or trying to command attention. Your intensity is the natural expression of someone who has spent time in the fire and emerged whole. Your words carry weight because they come from a place of lived experience, not theory. Your silence holds power because it is not emptiness, it is presence. You are not afraid of stillness, not afraid of emotion, not afraid of truth, and that lack of fear radiates through you like heat through metal. People pick up on it, even if they can't define it. It stirs something in them, calls something out of them, and while some are drawn to it, others feel unsettled by what it activates in the spaces they've kept carefully guarded and undisturbed. Your intensity is not about being loud or forceful, it's about being full. Full of presence, full of awareness, full of truth. You see things others look away from. You feel things others suppress. You speak truths others only whisper in the dark. And when you bring that depth into a room where others are still trying to maintain the illusion of lightness, of normalcy, of surface-level safety, your presence becomes a kind of energetic disruption. Not because you're trying to break anything, but because truth always breaks illusion when it's allowed to exist without apology. People may react to you as though you're too much, too serious, too intense, too something, but these reactions are rarely about you. They are about what your energy does to the masks they wear, to the silence they maintain, to the comfort they have constructed around avoiding what is raw and real and unresolved inside themselves. You don't dilute your presence to keep others at ease, because you've learned that doing so costs you too much. You've tried, perhaps in the past, to soften your voice, to smile more, to make yourself more palatable, more acceptable, more likable. But every time you did, something inside you dimmed, and so you stopped. Not out of rebellion, but out of reverence for the truth of who you are. You began to understand that your intensity is not a flaw. It is a signal, a compass, a calling. It is the expression of a soul that does not sleepwalk through life. It is the mark of someone who refuses to live only halfway awake. And while many crave the light you bring, they are not always ready for the heat that comes with it, the kind of heat that burns away pretense and melts through layers of protection built up over years of fearing what lies underneath. People may say you make them feel seen, or that they feel alive around you, or that they're not sure why they can't stop thinking about a brief moment in your company. And they may also say that being around you is exhausting, or intense, or too much to handle for long stretches of time. They may admire you from a distance, drawn to the energy you carry but wary of getting too close, because to truly be close to you means to be in the presence of someone who will not lie to themselves, and who will not allow others to lie comfortably either. And while you don't demand this honesty from others, your very being extends an invitation, one that few are truly prepared to accept without first confronting what they've been hiding from in their own lives. You carry this intensity not as a weapon, not as a shield, but as a natural consequence of being in alignment with who you truly are. And though it may cost you comfort, belonging, or easy acceptance, it gives you something much more enduring, the clarity of a life lived in truth, the magnetism of presence forged in fire, and the quiet knowing that what others call intensity is simply the resonance of a soul unwilling to remain small in a world that constantly asks you to forget your own depth in exchange for fleeting approval or temporary belonging. You don't just listen to words. You listen to the energy behind them, to the pauses, to the shifts in tone, to the silence that says more than the sentence ever could. Your intuition is not something you try to activate. It simply exists as a natural extension of your awareness, as familiar to you as breathing. It's not a performance, not a mystical display. It's a quiet, grounded knowing that guides you through the world without the need for constant explanation. You sense things others overlook. You can walk into a room and feel tension before a single word is spoken, sense a person's unease masked by a smile, detect a shift in a conversation long before it reaches the surface. Your intuition doesn't ask for permission. It simply informs you, and you've learned to trust it more than the noise of outside opinions or conventional logic. It tells you when something is off, when someone is hiding something, when a situation demands space rather than effort. And while this kind of insight might seem unsettling to those who depend entirely on facts and appearances, for you, it's simply how you navigate. You don't need to be told what's wrong to feel that something isn't right. You don't need to hear someone admit their pain to know it lives in them. You don't require proof to sense alignment or misalignment in your relationships, your work, your path. This inner knowing allows you to move through life in a way that can appear mysterious to others, as if you're making decisions based on nothing, when in truth, you're making decisions based on everything that cannot be seen or measured, but is no less real. Your intuition is not loud, it's steady. It doesn't beg for your attention. It waits patiently for you to recognize what you already know beneath the surface noise. And when you follow it, even when it leads you away from comfort or certainty, it always takes you to deeper truth. This can confuse people who are still trained to doubt their own instincts, who have been taught to override their inner voice with logic, approval, seeking or fear-based reasoning. They may view your decisions as irrational, your boundaries as sudden, your clarity as inexplicable, because they don't understand how you know what you know without external validation. But you've learned that your intuition is a sacred compass, and ignoring it leads only to self-abandonment. You've made mistakes when you doubted it, when you chose politeness over inner truth, when you dismissed that whisper that said something wasn't quite right. And over time, you stopped apologizing for trusting what others couldn't see, because you realized that those whispers were trying to protect you, to guide you, to align you with a life that is real and rich and resonant. You may not always be able to explain your insights in a way that satisfies others, but you no longer feel the need to justify your knowing. People might ask how you knew someone was lying, or how you sensed the outcome before it happened, or why you decided to walk away from a situation that seemed perfectly fine on the surface. And while you could try to explain the subtle cues, the energetic shifts, the gut-level clarity, you learned that some things cannot be explained without losing their truth in translation. Your intuition makes others uncomfortable, not because it's wrong, but because it's right too often. It breaks illusions, it bypasses masks, it reveals what's been hidden, and that kind of truth can be frightening in a world where many survive by denying their own. You don't try to expose people, but your presence can make them feel seen in ways they didn't ask for, and that seeing can either awaken something powerful in them or cause them to retreat back into their armor. You've come to accept that not everyone will understand the way you move, the way you choose, the way you seem to know things without being told, and that's not your burden to carry. It is simply the cost and the gift of living in alignment with a deeper intelligence, one that doesn't always speak in language but never leads you astray when you are quiet enough to listen and brave enough to follow. If you see yourself in these signs, know this: your aura is not a burden, it is a gift, a luminous intensity born from inner alignment. But it is not yours to dilute for the comfort of others. The path of the powerful soul is not to be more palatable, it is to be more real, and those who are ready for your light will not just endure it. They will be transformed by it. Thank you.